Hello and welcome to WION Live Broadcast from Washington, D.C. I'm Simon Marks, and in this bulletin, we'll get you a roundup of stories developing around the world. First up, the day's top headlines. Poland and Belarus square off over thousands of migrants trying to enter the EU. Warsaw warns of armed action against those trying to cross the border. Minsk hits back, accusing Poland of escalating tensions. The government of Pakistan reaches a ceasefire agreement for a month with the banned Taliban terrorist organisation, the Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan, in talks that were facilitated by the Taliban government in Afghanistan. Germany's naval chief sends a strong message to China, saying disputed areas of the South China Seas cannot be claimed by anyone. Germany sends a frigate to the Indo-Pacific region, saying it is concerned about peace and free navigation in the region. The top leaders of China's ruling Communist Party hold a four-day closed-door meeting in Beijing. It is expected to pass a resolution that will further tighten President Xi Jinping's grip on power. The UK is to recognise India's homegrown COVID-19 vaccine, Covaxin, from later this month, with no quarantine requirements for fully vaccinated travellers. The vaccine has already secured the WHO's emergency use authorisation. And shares in multinational conglomerate General Electric jump 15% after the company announces it will split into three separate units, each listed on the stock exchange. They'll specialise in aviation, healthcare and energy, respectively. It is very early days, but as the 2024 presidential race heats up here in the United States, former President Donald Trump has once again teased an announcement about a presidential run. Amid speculation over his intentions, Trump said that he would probably announce his 2024 plans after next November's midterm elections here. In a television interview, Trump said he is definitely thinking about his 2024 presidential bid, and he claimed that a lot of people will be very happy with his decision, language that he has used before to describe his plans. When asked about a potential running mate, Trump added that a lot of Republican lawmakers who are considering throwing their hat in the ring for 2024 are waiting for his decision because they won't run for the presidential nomination if he does. The former president also stated that he would not commit to a set timeline for making any announcement. For months now, the former president has teased and has laid the groundwork for a possible presidential run. He's continued to hold multiple campaign-style rallies across the country in support of Republican candidates in local races, and he sat down for interviews with conservative media outlets. In June, Trump told one of them that he had made a decision about whether to run for the presidency again, but he declined to reveal it. Many political analysts consider Florida Governor Ron DeSantis to be the likeliest GOP presidential nominee if Trump decides not to run. And then there's Nikki Haley. She served as ambassador to the United Nations during the early part of the Trump administration. Trump said that every once in a while she goes off the rails and comes back, which is nice. He added that Haley said she would not run if he decided to run. Amid a series of foreign and domestic crises, US President Joe Biden's approval rating has been in free fall in recent weeks, and Republicans are hoping to regain control over both the House of Representatives and the Senate next November. The GOP is already encouraged by a strong showing in this year's election contests. Just last week, Republican Glenn Youngkin defeated Democrat Terry McAuliffe in the governor's race in Virginia, a state Joe Biden won by 10 percentage points only a year ago. In New Jersey, which Biden won by 16 percentage points in 2020, Democratic Governor Phil Murphy barely eked out a win against his Republican opponent. The Islamic State and al-Qaeda terror groups could develop the capability to attack the United States in less than a year. That's the warning by a top US official. It comes less than 3 months after American troops completed their botched withdrawal from Kabul, after claiming to have eradicated al-Qaeda from the country. Ever-increasing attacks by Islamic State in Afghanistan are worrying top US officials. The Pentagon also remains deeply concerned over al-Qaeda's ongoing presence in the country. Speaking during his first briefing since assuming office, the US Special Representative for Afghanistan, Tom West, warned that there have been growing concerns in the West over the resurgence of terror groups in Afghanistan since the Taliban grabbed power in mid-August. In just 90 days, ISIS-K has carried out nearly 80 attacks. It's killed scores of Taliban fighters and civilians and carried out attacks on mosques and marketplaces in Kabul. ISIS-K killed the Taliban's chief of Kabul security and the commander of the Badri Brigade in an attack on a military hospital. ISIS-K, or ISIS-Khorasan, is an affiliate of Islamic State. The terror group has ideological differences with the Taliban. ISIS-K wants to establish a more hardline version of Islam in Afghanistan. One Canadian think tank believes that the ISIS-K group could pose a threat to Taliban rule if anti-Taliban armed groups join ISIS-Khorasan ranks. The think tank also reveals that nearly 10 weeks after coming to power, the Taliban have now cut their ties with al-Qaeda, adding that the security situation has worsened since the Taliban grabbed power. The Taliban, though, maintain that neither ISIS-K nor al-Qaeda is present in Afghanistan. Deeply impoverished, Afghanistan emerged from all-out war only to plunge into a humanitarian crisis. Despite the dire security situation, hunger and economic collapse, the Taliban is aiming to secure international recognition for its government. But Washington says it's not yet ready to offer that. The Biden administration wants regional partners to handle the volatile situation in Afghanistan. Tom West is due to travel to India to hold talks with officials in New Delhi. The US and India, of course, are allies in the Quad, and bilateral ties have been going from strength to strength between the two countries. The US Special Representative for Afghanistan will also visit Pakistan, Russia and the UK to discuss the evolving situation in the country. West also revealed that the US is preparing for a fresh round of talks with the Taliban in Doha. Now to Glasgow, and addressing the COP26 summit on climate change, former US President Barack Obama lambasted those who resorted to politics to avoid acting on climate science. Obama not only called out Russia and China, but also Republican politicians back at home.
Paris showed the world that progress is possible, created a framework. Important work was done there, and important work has been done here. That is the good news. Now for the bad news. We are nowhere near where we need to be yet.
Former U.S. President Barack Obama on Monday gave a scalding review of the global climate change response. Speaking at the COP26 summit in Glasgow,
Hello, Glasgow!
Obama lambasted those he says play politics to avoid reaching climate targets.
There is one thing that should transcend our day-to-day politics and normal geopolitics, and that is climate change.
He called out Russia and China for not doing enough.
I have to confess, it was particularly discouraging to see the leaders of two of the world's largest emitters, China and Russia, decline to even attend the proceedings. And their national plans so far reflect what appears to be a dangerous lack of urgency, a willingness to maintain the status quo on the part of those governments.
Obama then zeroed in on U.S. Republicans at home, blasting them for blocking climate ambitions, including Democratic President Joe Biden's agenda.
Both of us have been constrained, in large part, by the fact that one of our two major parties has decided not only to sit on the sidelines, but express active hostility toward climate science and make climate change a partisan issue. It doesn't matter if you're a Republican or a Democrat. If your Florida house is flooded by rising seas.
Obama said he is convinced that Biden will get Congress to pass a bill to spend $555 billion on climate change. It's urgent, Obama said, highlighting little progress made since the 2015 Paris Agreement was reached to try to curb warming at 1.5 degrees Celsius above pre-industrial levels.
Vote.
The former president told youth activists to keep fighting.
Vote like your life depends on it, because it does. I recognize that a lot of young people may be cynical about politics, but the cold, hard fact is we will not have more ambitious climate plans coming out of governments unless governments feel some pressure from voters.
It's the youth, Obama said, who have the most at stake.
Amid concerns of a Russian military buildup near Ukraine, the United States held a rare conversation with Russian President Vladimir Putin. The talks come 6 months after Russia designated the United States as an unfriendly nation. During a visit to Russia, the CIA director William Burns spoke by phone with Russian President Vladimir Putin, reportedly to discuss regional conflicts, strained bilateral ties, and cybersecurity issues. The CIA chief also spoke to the Ukrainian president by phone after his conversation with Putin. Last week, the Pentagon said it was monitoring the alleged buildup of Russian military forces near Ukraine. However, Kyiv downplayed the threat of the buildup. The Ukrainian army is locked in conflict with pro-Russian separatists dating back to Moscow's annexation of Crimea in 2014. The rift between NATO and Russia has been simmering. Last week, the Russian Navy conducted drills, destroying targets in the Black Sea after 2 U.S. warships, as a part of NATO operations, were deployed to the region earlier this month. U.S. President Joe Biden has vowed to help Ukraine fight Russian aggression, including providing arms and the possibility of re-implementing sanctions on the Russian-backed natural gas pipeline Nord Stream 2. They were only waived earlier this year. Biden and Putin last met at a summit in June. The Kremlin says a bilateral meeting between the two countries is a realistic possibility later this year. Europe is battling a massive migrant crisis. Hundreds of migrants in Belarus descended on its border with Poland, forcing their way into the EU country. Footage on social media showed hundreds of migrants walking towards the Polish border. Poland sent thousands of soldiers to the border area, enforced a state of emergency in the region with a complete media blackout. It built a razor wire fence and approved the construction of a wall. However, the migrants remain undeterred and were seen cutting razor wires, using branches to try and climb over fences. An armed Polish officer was seen using a chemical spray through the fence in a bid to stop them.
We don't have water, don't have food. How many times we waiting? I don't know. We don't know how many times waiting.
Accusing Belarus of trying to spark a major confrontation, Poland's Interior Ministry said it had rebuffed the illegal invasion and it claimed the situation was under control. A Polish government spokesman said there were currently about 3,000 to 4,000 migrants near the border. More than 10,000 others across Belarus are ready to try and cross into Poland. Warsaw has warned that thousands more were on the way and future attempts to breach its frontier could be armed in nature.
W tej chwili polskich granic strzeże kilkanaście tysięcy, bezpośrednio polskich granic strzeże kilkanaście tysięcy funkcjonariuszy Straży Granicznej, polskiego wojska oraz policji. My będziemy w najbliższym czasie również wzmacniać te siły, w szczególności w tych miejscach, które są narażone najbardziej na ataki ze strony osób, które w sposób nielegalny próbują przekroczyć polską granicę. Więc my się spodziewamy, że na polskiej granicy może w najbliższym czasie dojść do eskalacji tego typu działań, które będą miały charakter zbrojny i bardzo tego się obawiamy, jednocześnie o tym informujemy, ponieważ takie zachowania, takie prowokacje ze strony białoruskiej mogą się pojawić.
The European Union has accused Belarusian strongman Alexander Lukashenko of facilitating a wave of migrants and refugees. The migrants, mainly from the Middle East, tried to enter the EU in retaliation for sanctions imposed by Brussels. Minsk has reportedly issued special visas allowing migrants to fly into Belarus. Lukashenko's government has repeatedly denied its role in this. He blamed the West for the crossings and the treatment of migrants at the border, confirming that a large group of refugees were moving along the highway towards the Polish border. The Belarusian State Border Committee said in a statement that Warsaw was taking an inhumane attitude. The US State Department has condemned the influx of migrants, adding that the US will not lessen calls for accountability. It has also called on the Belarus government to halt immediately its campaign of orchestrating migration flows across its borders.
We are concerned with disturbing images and reports emanating from the Belarus-Poland border this weekend. The United States strongly condemns the Lukashenko regime's political exploitation and coercion of vulnerable people and the regime's callous and inhumane facilitation of irregular migration flows across its borders. We call on the regime to immediately halt its campaign of orchestrating and coercing irregular migrant flows across its borders into Europe.
As the massing of people appeared to signal an escalation of the crisis, Germany also urged the European Union to take action and help stem the flow of migrants illegally crossing into Poland.
No go to Poland. We are go to Germany. Germany is life. No Poland.
European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen called on member states to impose new sanctions against Belarus. She said in a statement the use of migrants for political purposes is unacceptable, adding that the EU would also look at how to sanction third country airlines that bring migrants to Belarus. The EU, the United States and Britain have imposed sanctions on Belarus after Lukashenko unleashed a crackdown following a disputed presidential election last year. Carrying 4 astronauts who were on a 6-month mission to the International Space Station, a SpaceX capsule landed off the coast of Florida. The Dragon vehicle, named Endeavour, parachuted into the ocean as planned after a fiery re-entry through the Earth's atmosphere. The Flight Control Center broke into applause when the 4 main parachutes inflated above the capsule as it drifted down towards the Gulf.
Live views inside Endeavour. Wonderful. Getting all 4 crew members thumbs up.
Ending a 200-day space station mission, 4 astronauts returned to Earth.
Outside of Crew Dragon Endeavour, here comes the 3rd member.
The capsule streaked through the late-night sky like a dazzling meteor. Slowed by the Earth's atmosphere as well as 4 huge parachutes, the Dragon capsule was able to withstand the dizzying descent thanks to its heat shield. The Dragon vehicle, called Endeavour, landed in the Gulf of Mexico off the coast of Florida, marking the end of the Crew 2 mission. A boat retrieved the capsule and the astronauts on board were brought back to land via helicopter. The crew was made of 2 NASA astronauts, Mission Commander Shane Kimbrough and pilot Megan MacArthur, along with Japanese astronaut Akihiko Hoshide and fellow mission specialist Thomas Pesquet, a French engineer from the Europe Space Agency.
Is really everything.
Their activities in space included documenting Earth's surface to record human-caused changes and natural events, growing hatch chili peppers, and studying worms to better understand health changes in space. In a first for SpaceX, before leaving, the 4 astronauts took a spin around the International Space Station, taking pictures. The 8-hour ride back home was not the most comfortable one for the crew. The toilet in the capsule was broken, so the astronauts relied on diapers for the return journey.
2, 1, 0.
The SpaceX Falcon 9 rocket had lifted off on April 23rd from the Kennedy Space Center in Florida.
Endeavour launches once again.
Bureau Report, WION World is One.
Making their way to the one and only International Space Station.
Finally today we're going to go back to Afghanistan. The World Health Organization and the United Nations Children's Agency has started a polio vaccination campaign there. It is the first nationwide campaign to fight the disease in 3 years, and it aims to reach over 3 million children. The campaign has received Taliban backing, but there are several hurdles that the authorities in Afghanistan face, including a shortage of trained health staff.
A polio vaccination campaign kicked off in Afghanistan on Monday, the first in 3 years. The campaign, run by the World Health Organization and UNICEF, aims to reach over 3 million children. The WHO said it had received Taliban backing, which would allow teams to reach children in previously inaccessible parts of the country. But hurdles remain. Trained staff are in short supply. Polio vaccinator Hasibullah Kaderi says resistance from families is another challenge.
We didn't receive the polio medicines on time, and most of the families refused to vaccinate their kids because there were rumours that this polio vaccine may harm their children. These are the issues we're facing.
Afghanistan and neighbouring Pakistan are the last countries in the world with endemic polio, an incurable and highly infectious disease transmitted through sewage. It can cause crippling paralysis in young children. Polio has been almost eradicated globally through a decades-long inoculation drive. But insecurity, inaccessible terrain, mass displacement and suspicion of outside interference have hampered mass vaccination in both countries. Several polio workers were killed by gunmen in eastern Afghanistan this year, though it was not clear who was behind the attacks. According to WHO figures compiled before the collapse of the Western-backed government in August, there was 1 reported case of wild polio virus type 1 in Afghanistan in 2021, compared with 56 in 2020.
And that's the Tuesday edition of WION Live Broadcast from Washington, D.C. I'm Simon Marks. I'll be back at the same time, same place tomorrow. For more global news and updates, stay tuned to WION. World is One.
There are many other... this is right, Arab.